This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am the host of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter or Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function Podcast, available on all your podcasting platforms, including the one that you're listening to this show on. And also available on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free listening experience. Now, this has been a very long week. Very, very long week. Just for me personally, I spent about 4 days putting together what was one of the most tedious and complicated, if you will, pieces of audio that I've ever done. I've been doing the SmackDown review for going on 4 years now, and doing this show and pretty much any show like this, like a simple review show or anything like that, it's a very simple process. You press record, bam, you send it to Matt puts the intro and all that stuff in it, and he handles the behind the scenes stuff for the WWE Podcast, obviously. But the mailbag show, that's probably a little bit different. I'm sure that Matt has to insert multiple different tracks, not just the intro, not just the actual episode recording itself, but all of the calls and the emails and the things like that from all of the other listeners. And you have to do it in an order that makes sense whenever the listener is, listening to your episode. And the only reason why I'm even bringing this up is to kind of shed light on, what I got to accomplish this week, because my episodes of the Football Function, it's pretty similar to an episode of the WWE Podcast, just a regular episode. There's an intro, there's an outro, and it's about a 30-minute episode, give or take, sometimes more, depending on, what show it is and what exactly we're talking about. So for the most part, each episode that I do is about 3 or 4 tracks whenever I'm editing the audio file, and I'm putting it all together to make one. This last episode, which we called Mock Draft Mania, it was 55 tracks that I had to pretty much just make into a multi-track episode and condense it to one audio file where you're listening and it sounds like it's all just one recording. Like, bam, they hit play and then here we go, we're taking off. I wish that it was like that. Unfortunately, it's not quite that easy. So this one took some work. And not only, did it take a lot of time actually at the computer putting it together once I got all of the audio files, but I had to reach out to several people, over 3 dozen, I'd say, people to try to contribute. I wanted to get a fan of each team, of each NFL team, to pick for that team in our final mock draft. I feel like similar to the WWE Podcast, the Football Function has a community feel where I like to get, multiple people involved. I wanted to give fans a platform and a voice to speak out for their team, to, make those types of important decisions. And the fact that it wasn't a me mock draft, like I'm not the one that was making all of these picks, and the fact that all of the listeners and all of the contributors had to let the episode play out depending on what decisions they made in the draft. It was a fun exercise. I think that it's something I want to do every single year. There were some teams that I didn't have a representative for, so that's my goal next year, is to try to reach out and find representatives of every single team. But we legitimately covered, I think, about 24, like 3/4 of the league. We had somebody on and making the pick. So, I want to give a shout out to the WWE Podcast people, the listeners that are obviously from this show that came over to the Football Function to support what I'm doing over there as well. I cannot explain how much I appreciate you guys for doing that. But, obviously DJ Kuzmo sent in an audio clip, Elvis Escobar, Double J, Howard Poole, Detroit Kyle, although the timing didn't quite work out for DJ Kyle and myself to get this to get his audio clip in there, he still made the pick. I still used his selection that he made, and I'm definitely wanting to get him, on the show very, very soon because Detroit just absolutely blew the roof off and blew the expectations completely out of the water for any draft crowd. Like, I'm talking about the NFL draft, before I get into the WWE draft that we're talking about. But night one of the NFL draft was, I think, 275,000 people. That is insane. I went to WrestleMania 38, as you guys already know, and there was about 80,000 people there each night, and that was just a nightmare. Getting around the stadium, leaving the parking lot, finding a parking space. Like, I'm sure, everybody that goes to live events, whether it's, any type of sporting event, anything that you have to use public parking and walk to a venue, there is a whole situation there involving parking. It's why people leave a little bit early. It's why people show up late sometimes, just because of the chaos that is a crowd. And, Detroit definitely was a chaotic place to be. But I feel like they came through for not only their city, who is probably going to host a lot more things going forward just because of the turnout that they got. Like, man, the people there in Detroit are absolutely ready for talking about the Detroit Lions. They're ready for a Super Bowl, but, just in general, they're ready for some excitement to get sent back into that city. Hasn't really been exciting there for quite a long time. I guess it depends on what you define as exciting. Me personally, I'm referring to like the Detroit Pistons days, whenever they were one of the best basketball teams of all time. Legitimately, I think it might be the 2004 Pistons that won an NBA championship, and I think they're the only team in NBA history to win an NBA championship without a top 75 player all time. So that's, obviously something that is very impressive. But, we're not going to talk about other sports much more. I just had to kind of give you guys an idea as to the week that I've had leading up to this point. Literally, it's day 3 of the NFL draft right now. This is about 6 to 7 months of preparation, all culminating this weekend. Stuff that we do at the Football Function podcast with so many different episodes that cover each position. So we are excited that the draft is coming on, obviously, because now we get to recharge a little bit. But unfortunately for me, there is a sickness bug going around my house. So I am currently dealing with that. Like, just being completely honest, I was struggling here, trying to get the energy and feel well enough to sit down in front of this microphone and talk to you guys for 30 minutes, because it was such a meaningful episode. Like, I really do have faith in this WWE draft, like what they're going to do going forward. I have high hopes, and I have some pretty high expectations because of the roster that's at hand. There's no reason for them to feature the same superstars on every show. There's no reason to cross over. That's why I hate the whole women's tag team championship situation. Like, just get rid of those championships and create 2 women's mid-card belts if you have to. And I know that's asking for a lot with how current WWE doesn't really like to feature the women's wrestling like, they could. If you look at how their roster is, like, it's not like these people can't put on a show. Like, I think that it's more so how deep the men's roster is and them wanting to showcase as much talent as they possibly can. That's why you see them cram so many women together in these factions. So it's like killing 3 birds with 1 stone. They're actually trying to feature more than what they're allowing themselves time-wise. So I guess we can kind of just see if it improves whenever these women are going to be completely split up into 2 different brands. But if the women's tag team championships are the only belts that are going from brand to brand, I think that'll be okay. I think I can get over that. But here's the catch. I don't want to see the wrestlers appear on the other brand. And what I mean by that is, like, say right now, Kabuki Warriors, say we draft them to SmackDown. And it just so happens that the new number 1 contenders for the women's tag team championships are on Raw. They can feud all they want. They could take shots at each other through promos, but I don't want to see them actually cross paths until the pay-per-view, until we get to a pay-per-view where it's actually, worthy of that type of payoff. Like, I don't think that that's something that should take place on a Raw or a SmackDown. Like, I think that should take place at a pay-per-view. And preferably, they go back to making the big 4 the only pay-per-views that are multi-branded. I know that might be asking for a lot too. Well, I want to see every championship feud end at each pay-per-view. I'm with you. I think that would be a great way to approach things, but also, do you not remember how great things used to be whenever each brand had their own pay-per-views? Like No Way Out was a SmackDown pay-per-view. No Mercy was a SmackDown pay-per-view. Unforgiven was a Raw pay-per-view. Armageddon was a Raw pay-per-view. And so on and so forth. Judgment Day, SmackDown pay-per-view. Bad Blood, Raw pay-per-view. You'd have to create new names, unfortunately, for some of these pay-per-views. But there's 12 months out of the year. I think that if you were to, split it up, the big 4 is multi-branded pay-per-views. So that leaves 8 pay-per-views remaining throughout the year, 4 per brand, not even including NXT, where, you can do whatever you want right there. But I just feel like if you were to kind of slow things down a little bit, it could give you more time to, really get in deep with these storylines. It gives you more time to book. You don't have to try to cram it in. It would give more wrestlers a platform, because instead of cramming 2 brands worth of shows into one pay-per-view, each brand would have its own pay-per-view. And then whenever you get to the big 4, when you get to SummerSlam, cool, we got both brands here on this show. And then you go to September and October, and then each brand has their own, like whether it's Raw or SmackDown in September, October, one brand has a pay-per-view in September, one brand has a pay-per-view in October, and then in November, we get another multi-branded one with Survivor Series. And then December, we can get a pay-per-view, depending on who it comes down to in the order, give it to Raw or SmackDown. And then January, we have another multi-branded pay-per-view. And then you fast forward February, March, 1 per show. Bam. You get to April, WrestleMania, multi-branded. And then you just go May, June, and July. 3 more pay-per-views. So 3 is the most that you have to go all year without having a multi-branded pay-per-view. That's just my pitch. So if anybody out there within the sound of my voice thinks that I'm onto something there in bringing back the brand-specific pay-per-views, let me know. But I understand it's not something that's going to be for everybody. I don't think that collectively everyone's going to just love that idea. So I totally get that. But just me personally, I feel like that's the way that you get the most out of this brand split, is by really having these shows feel like different worlds, where it's only 4 times a year that we see these brands come together at the same or in the same arena. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this episode of the SmackDown review. And we are going to be talking about the SmackDown that aired on April 26th, 2024 from Cincinnati, Ohio. And the show starts, obviously, location breakdown, brought to you by DJ Kuzmo. I actually had to turn off my Discord notifications because I was watching round 2 and 3 of the draft on Friday night just because I literally had to. And I wasn't able to watch SmackDown until early in the morning, but I also had to go to work. So there was a little bit of like a time crunch that I was trying to jam it in there. But I didn't want it to be spoiled. Typically, I don't care. I'll leave the Discord's, chat on, and I'll be spoiled on a regular episode of SmackDown because nothing really happens that's going to blow me away anyway. So yeah, I might as well kind of know what's coming before it comes, if it just so happens to work out like that. I don't get upset if I have something spoiled. But on this specific episode, I actually didn't want to be spoiled. I actually wanted to be able to let the pick surprise me. So I went and silenced my Discord notifications, and I was able to enjoy the episode of SmackDown this morning without having any types of, surprises be spoiled. But I don't really think there was any surprises that were good by any means. I will say I wasn't too pleased with this episode of SmackDown. It's not like it was like a bad episode by any means. I just feel like the draft picks themselves didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Just, my personal opinion on it. Obviously, I'm Team SmackDown, so I was hoping to see SmackDown draft some people that they didn't. I was hoping to see them take advantage, maybe get a couple new faces over here. But it is what it is. I just, I was a little bit disappointed. It wasn't the worst version of these drafts that we've seen. I remember the one time they made it last like a month. I really wasn't a fan of that. I am a one-night type of drafter, I guess. Like, I would like to see them get it done in one night. 2 nights isn't bad by any means, because I am looking forward to seeing if maybe they take advantage of Raw on Monday night, similar to how Monday Night Raw, I feel like, was taking advantage of SmackDown outside of the very first pick. Because, yeah, who we picked first made all the sense in the world. I was happy about that. But from then on, it almost seemed like as soon as SmackDown, picked a wrestler, Raw would come in immediately after that and pick somebody better or someone who I was just more excited about. It wasn't, I guess, a terrific draft for SmackDown on night one. Other people might feel different. They might feel like, they got away with this. SmackDown got a steal. But I feel like the fact that they picked first in every round, they should have, without a doubt, had a better haul than what Raw did. And I can't say that they did. I feel like it was more 50-50, which almost, was a credit to Raw that they didn't pick first and they still were able to build as good, if not better, of a foundation to what SmackDown was building. But let's go ahead and get into how this show unwrapped, starting with Paul Heyman informing all of us via an interview with Caleb Braxton that Roman Reigns has made himself ineligible for the draft because he's not going to be here for a while. So what does a good tribal chief do? They don't take the spotlight and the shine and hog up the first overall pick. So essentially Roman Reigns is on that Brock Lesnar treatment. He's not going to get drafted. He's pretty much ineligible. So he's not going to be on a specific brand. We'll see. He's going to be gone most of the time anyways. But whenever he does show back up, hopefully he sticks on, one show. And obviously I'm hoping that show is SmackDown. But let's see here. To start off the show, we get the WWE Undisputed Championship contract signing. Corey Graves is actually the one that's hosting it. But a week from today, whenever I'm recording this, we will get AJ Styles versus Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed WWE Championship. A phenomenal match, no pun intended. I think that's going to, or a phenomenal matchup, I should say, because the match hasn't happened. But I think that on paper, the match itself, it looks like a main event. It looks like a match that could have a lot of storytelling, especially if we let these two guys, really go, give them some time, like 25, 30-minute match. I think they could really make the most out of that. But the fact that we don't get much to any build at all is a little bit discouraging. Like I was about to say, it would be nice to see these guys, get a chance to cut some promos and make this match actually mean something outside of, the respect that they have for each other and the fact that they have a couple things in common and they're both Georgia boys. I just think there's a lot more there that you can take advantage of, a lot more stuff that you can get out of that, but they really don't have a lot of time. Cody Rhodes needed an opponent for France and Backlash for the quick turnaround after WrestleMania, and AJ Styles was probably the most worthy guy that we could think of off the top of our hand. He's putting himself in phenomenal shape. That word just comes out so easily when you're talking about AJ Styles. Phenomenal. But he's in great shape. He's obviously still got a lot of gas left in the tank. He's bringing his A game because that he's been pretty vocal here lately that he's not going to stick around much longer. He doesn't want to be a shell of himself. So I don't think he's a shell of himself right now. It might be harder to get out of bed every day. It might be a little bit more of a painful grind, but I still think AJ Styles has this and a few more meaningful programs left in him before he officially hangs it up as a full-time wrestler. I imagine they'll try to give us a little bit of a boost on the go-home show just to make this feud feel like it does, in fact, feel like must-see TV, and obviously prove that it's worthy of that main event spot on a pay-per-view, especially an overseas pay-per-view where the crowd's probably going to be absolutely bonkers. I'm really liking these overseas pay-per-views. I gotta say that they're really over-delivering with the crowd response. Triple H and all these press conferences talk about how we blew this record out of the water. We've broken this record now, and it's just something that I feel like is going to continue to happen. The more countries, the more stops that they actually hit. And obviously, we're hearing a lot from London. London wants a WrestleMania pretty bad. Like they're like, no, we can absolutely do this. We are the sports capital of the world. So yeah, give us WrestleMania. I promise you won't regret it. And hey, sign me up. Like, yeah, it would be cool to have WrestleMania be like a 5-hour drive from me like it was in 2022. Damn, I almost went way back. But 2022. So yeah, that'd be dope. But if not, then send them to London. Let's let a place that hasn't gotten one, especially if you're not going to give it to Atlanta. I'm a little bit disappointed that Mercedes-Benz Stadium has been up and running since 2017, and we've yet to get a WrestleMania. Interesting. But I guess we can go ahead and get into this draft and start round one, which this pick was made by Triple H and Cody Rhodes. He had Cody Rhodes announce the first selection for SmackDown, the first overall pick. And obviously, this is probably the only pick that I was like, okay, understandable. Like, I would have made that pick too if I was looking at the pool of players that were eligible to be drafted. So I didn't knock the first pick, which ended up being Bianca Belair to SmackDown. Like I said, SmackDown picks first in these drafts. And then I was kind of surprised up next, Monday Night Raw selected main event Jey Uso. I feel like there were more promising wrestlers on the board, but I'm not anti Jey Uso. I was a little bit shocked. I was taken back by that pick. And then with their second pick in the first round, SmackDown selects the first NXT superstar, Carmello Hayes, making his way to SmackDown. Another one where I was like, I would have rather it been Braun Breaker there. Just being completely honest, I'm not like a Carmello Hayes hater by any means. I don't watch enough NXT to form an opinion on him one way or the other. But I do know that I'm much higher on Braun Breaker than I am him. So the fact that we kind of just, in my opinion, reached on Carmello Hayes, that's pretty much where the draft kind of took a little bit of a turn. And with the final pick for Raw in the first round, they get Seth freaking Rollins. And that's kind of where I was like, man, could we not have picked Seth? I know he's not going to be around for a while. He's injured. But I would have much rather had a run for Seth Rollins on SmackDown. But like I said, it's been a while since we've seen Seth Rollins on SmackDown consistently. And if this is what it takes, him staying on Monday Night Raw for another however many years, I'm fine with it. Because like I said, it goes both ways. The whole brand specific, people being synonymous with one brand. Seth Rollins is clearly synonymous with Monday Night Raw, and I would be fine with continuing that as long as we get Roman Reigns over here on SmackDown because, hey, it's been like 4 years now of Roman Reigns being on SmackDown, so I would like to keep it that way if we are going to keep the real kind of structure and the base of these brands the same, and you're just mixing up some of the mid-card, maybe a star here or there. Yeah, I would be fine with Roman Reigns finding a home on SmackDown once he does actually return as probably a babyface. If I had to guess, he's been on a 4-year heel run. So it makes sense that he kind of dips his toes in the babyface waters a little bit again. But I will say, they kind of teased at it. If you keep in mind, if you draft a new superstar from a different brand, you could very easily get one of your superstars snatched up. They said that a couple times, and I feel like they were trying to prepare us that it was going to happen, and unfortunately it happened to SmackDown a little bit later in the show. Up next, we get a couple matches. First up, we get a tag team match. Mysterio and Dragon Lee versus, I think it was Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. I know it was definitely LWO versus Legado del Fantasma. The match itself was pretty irrelevant because, obviously Mysterio and Dragon Lee get the win, but out come Santos Escobar, Elektra Lopez. They put a stop to their little celebration, and they actually show security footage of Carlito attacking Dragon Lee right before WrestleMania 40, making it to where Rey Mysterio had to choose a new partner. He ended up choosing Andrade, but right after, Carlito is revealed that he was the one that attacked Dragon Lee, he pretty much does it again. He turns heel right there in the ring, takes off running through the crowd. This was a very nice twist, something that I feel like is a little bit underrated of a move because of how great of a heel Carlito is. And if we're going to get him on WWE TV, we might as well get the best version of him. So yeah, if he's going to turn heel again, let me see him show up next Friday with an apple. Come on. I feel like us as fans, we need that. But this was a nice little twist. Santos said a couple times in previous weeks, I'm not the one that attacked Dragon Lee. He kept saying, I feel like that was kind of over. People get attacked all the time. People have to replace partners. No one really thinks twice about it. But he kept bringing it up, and the fact that he kept bringing it up made me feel like there was going to be something more there, and we finally get it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the type of heel run we get from Carlito. Up next, we get Braun Breaker versus Cedric Alexander, and the commentary team was trying to introduce both of the wrestlers, and about 5 seconds into the match, Braun Breaker just demolishes him with a spear and pins him. It was probably like a 6-7 second match. Absolutely squashed Braun in his last match on SmackDown, because now I'm going to turn our attention to round 2. The picks were announced instead of Triple H and Cody Rhodes by Michelle McCool and Tori Wilson. SmackDown picking first in the round selected Randy Orton, which right then I was like, great pick, love Randy Orton, but I do feel like, I would have factored in youth. I would have factored in upside in this draft. And Raw does that exact thing with their pick. They take Braun Breaker, and then SmackDown takes Nia Jax, and then Raw takes Liv Morgan. So I feel like round 2, Monday Night Raw absolutely dunked on SmackDown. I love Randy Orton. Nia Jax, I feel like, is going to have a pretty good summer. I feel like the company is behind her. They're willing to push her, put her more in the main event picture, obviously. What she did a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about that. But this was a round that I feel like really made me like, oh my gosh, come on, are you kidding me? You guys know I love Liv Morgan. I was excited about Braun Breaker. So many weeks leading up to this, I was hyping up Braun Breaker being on SmackDown. The fact that he had that contract negotiation debacle where he was like going back and forth, who do I go with? What brand do I sign with? That was all for nothing. If there was a draft around the corner, why would you even do that? So hopefully we don't lose Jade Cargill, but I have a bad feeling that we're probably going to on Monday Night Raw. But nonetheless, round 2 was definitely won by Monday Night Raw. Up next, the Bloodline show up. They're shown pulling up in a blacked out car per usual. Paul Heyman actually doesn't open the door, so it was like an awkward 5-6 seconds where, the Bloodline wasn't getting out of the car. So Heyman finally goes over there and opens it, and Solo just pretty much gets in Paul Heyman's face, demands that he gives him the details as to why they're not drafted, why haven't they been picked yet. Probably because we actually like to pick people that win matches. They don't lose. Like one of his little attributes, because they showed attributes as people were being picked. And one for Solo Sikoa was that he defeated John Cena at wherever. I don't even remember what pay-per-view it was at. But he hasn't won since. Like, have they mentioned that? I feel like that's a pretty important thing to kind of throw in there. But you guys already know by now, I am very much anti-Solo at this point. I don't feel like he is as good as the position they're trying to put him in. Like right now, like they're really trying to make him be the guy that's like trying to be the new tribal chief. It's not believable at all. Paul Heyman doesn't even believe it, and you guys already know kind of the type of guy Paul Heyman is. But Kevin Owens comes and attacks them from behind, both Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. It gets split up, although, they're still trying to get at each other. So next we get a face-off between the Kabuki Warriors and Jade and Bianca after a nice little promo from Bianca where she was proud that she was drafted to SmackDown, the first pick. I'm glad that she's here, certainly. But it gets cut short because Kevin Owens and Tama Tonga's fight spilled onto the stage, and obviously Solo comes out to jump Kevin Owens until Randy Orton comes out to even the odds. And then we turn our attention to round 3, and this one was announced by the Dudley Boys. And I feel like the balance kind of evened out a little bit in this round. I feel like it was more so Raw reaching and SmackDown taking advantage of the round. So if this is kind of the way that they're doing it, is like taking turns, and I'm all for it. But with the first pick in the 3rd round, SmackDown selected LA Knight, followed by Raw picking Ricochet. And then SmackDown picked the Bloodline, so Tama Tonga, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman. And then we get Sheamus going to Monday Night Raw. So that's pretty much how I feel about that, was that SmackDown won that round. Like, if we were just being completely honest, let's see. Round 1, I'll give it a split. Bianca and Carmello Hayes, although, the youth and the upside, SmackDown definitely has the edge on that one. I like Jey Uso. I like Seth Rollins. They've kind of been on Monday Night Raw, so it's not really hurting anything, the fact that they went over there. And then you get round 2, Randy Orton and Nia Jax. And then we get Braun Breaker and Liv Morgan going to Raw. So I feel like at this point, after round 2, Monday Night Raw was in the lead. Like, they had a whole point and a half, and SmackDown just had a half. And then round 3, SmackDown got their full point back, and it was 1.5 versus 1.5, if that makes sense, how we're splitting up these rounds and, who's got the edge, just in my personal opinion. But we do see backstage Tiffany Stratton approach Nick Aldis and say, why didn't I get a number 1 contenders match? Why didn't I get a championship match? And Nick Aldis tells her that he considered moving her all the way to the back of the line until he had somebody tell him otherwise, that he should do something else. And that person ended up being the WWE Women's Champion, Bayley. She's shown right there. She approaches the screen and she says that, hey, this is like a 2-for-1. It's a win-win. If Naomi wins, then she gets that championship opportunity that she was screwed out of last week by Tiffany Stratton. And if Tiffany Stratton wins this match, then she gets to show her what happens whenever you mess with the role model. So I like that they're pushing Tiffany Stratton. I really do. And I swear, if we lose her and Jade Cargill and Braun Breaker, like there goes all the excitement that I just had over the past couple months for the new young talent that SmackDown just got. Like, I don't want to see that happen. We've already lost Braun Breaker. Let me keep my girls, all right? But anyways, we do get that number one contenders match, Tiffany Stratton versus Naomi. We get Bayley on commentary. And as the match is going on, Bayley gets attacked by Nia Jax, eventually causing a disqualification. So we don't get a true winner again here. So what does Nick Aldis do? He pretty much says that we're going to get a WWE Women's Championship triple threat match at Backlash. Naomi versus Bayley versus Tiffany Stratton. But where does Nia Jax play into all this? I think that's a pretty important part that we need to figure out is, you know, where we're going to have the next person who just screwed her over. But round 4, we get Teddy Long and JBL announcing the picks. So they keep it in the legend theme. And I like that, but I just feel like we should have legends that are synonymous with specific brands because I feel like we had enough. Like the Dudley Boys were pretty much known as Raw people, whereas JBL and Teddy Long were known as SmackDown. You could have just split it up throughout the night. I don't really know why Michelle McCool was, announcing a pick either. That one kind of threw me off. But anyways, round 4, AJ Styles is the first pick to SmackDown, followed by the Alpha Academy going to Monday Night Raw. And then SmackDown selects Andrade, followed by Monday Night Raw with the final selection of the night getting Kiana James from NXT. I am not familiar with her at all. So if she would have been selected to SmackDown, I probably would have had to do my due diligence and figure out exactly the type of talent that we just got. But she ended up going to Monday Night Raw, so best of luck to her over there. And now we get a one-on-one match, because that's one thing I failed to mention after round 1 was Carmello Hayes came out and he challenged Cody Rhodes to a one-on-one match to introduce himself to SmackDown, to pretty much say, hey, this is what you guys just got. And he did just that. These two put on a phenomenal match. There was one spot where they both kind of did a springboard off the second rope and they both missed, got nothing but air. Cody Rhodes kind of landed on his shoulder, which, as you know, you don't ever want to get Cody Rhodes dinged up, because as great of a performer as he is, he has a tendency to get injured from time to time. So we do want to keep him, nice and shiny going into Backlash. And luckily, nothing happened in this match that dinged him up any more than that little bit of a fall on the shoulder. He gets the win, obviously, with Crossroads. AJ Styles comes out. We get a face-to-face. But before AJ Styles came out, Cody Rhodes pretty much put over Carmello Hayes as good as he possibly could. Made him stand up, kind of patted him on the back, raised his arm. So these guys are trying to let us know that SmackDown did get a real one. And if you just give him some time, he'll probably win you over. But that does do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for bearing with me during this episode. I am very sick. I'm ready to just go lay down pretty much. But I have, in 1 hour, a Celtics game to watch. And the only thing that could make me feel worse than I do right now is the Celtics losing to the Miami Heat for a second game in this series. So we don't need that to happen at all. But thank you guys so much. I hope you all have a phenomenal weekend. Enjoy the end of April. We are creeping up on the very beginning of May. And then, as you guys know, we're getting right into summer. So have a damn good rest of your weekend. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.